Now taking a closer look at the two rows we get when using flex wrap or wrap reverse, you can see that the spacing is not equally distributed between the two rows. So here they are stuck more closely to the container than up here, which is clear because I just set some arbitrary height here of 200 pixels, and then the items just align somehow and they don't by default try to get the spacing right. This is very similar to a container with just one row, where you just add some items and don't specify any justify content value here that maybe makes them distribute more equally. So the property we're going to discuss in this lecture is going to be very similar to justify content, but it's important to differentiate between the two, because justify content basically defines your spacing along the main axis, even if you have just one row. Now in this lecture we're going to look at a property which is called align content, and align content will only make a difference at all if you have more than one row, because it's gonna define the behavior of the different rows and how their spacing is distributed along the cross axis. So in this case, of course, along the vertical axis again. So let's actually go ahead and increase the height here a bit. And then let's say align content will also do flex start. Alright, so since we're using wrap reverse here, flex start is actually at the bottom of the container, because right now the start of the cross axis is down here and the end of the cross axis is up here. But we can also make this a bit easier, maybe just to think about it, by using wrap instead of wrap reverse, and let's also just go ahead and use row. So now this is kind of a more familiar situation here. So with align content set to flex start, all your items will actually align on top of the container here, and the different values you can use are the exact same you can use for justify content. So the next one would be flex end, which will align then at the bottom, so at the end of the cross axis. Then you can have center, and you can have space around and space between, which will distribute the space more equally between the different rows you have. So this is not very much new to learn, because you already know about justify content, and align content has the exact same possible values and also behaves the same way, just on the cross axis and not the main axis. So that's already all about align content, very similar to justify content, so not much new to learn. If you have any questions about this, please just let me know in the Q&A section. And otherwise, these were all the properties for flex containers. So in the next section, we're going to move on to those that concern the flex items themselves. And as always, I encourage you to try this out for yourself. Take a look at the showcase, maybe try to reproduce the layouts in there. And then I'm going to see you again in the next section.